I still remember that sunny Tuesday morning when my phone buzzed with a bank alert. $42,000. A loan I never applied for. My stomach dropped when I discovered Jake, my younger brother, had stolen my identity to finance a luxury car. The real gut punch came when I confronted my parents, and instead of outrage on my behalf, they smiled and told me I should be grateful Jake was finally showing responsibility in life. They expected me to just accept it. I still remember the exact day my life turned upside down because of my brother's betrayal. If you have ever had family take advantage of you, drop a comment about how you handled it. While you are at it, hit that like and subscribe button to join me as I share how I delivered the perfect revenge. Growing up as the oldest child in our family came with expectations that shaped my entire life. From the time I was 10, I was the designated role model, the responsible one, the standard bearer. Our parents, Frank and Diana, made it clear that as the firstborn, I needed to set an example for Jake, who was 4 years younger. My father worked as a middle manager at an insurance company, bringing home a steady income but never quite enough for the lifestyle he thought our family deserved. He was rigid in his beliefs about family hierarchy and responsibility. Every decision I made was scrutinized through the lens of how it would influence Jake. Edgar, you need to show your brother the right path became his mantra whenever I questioned why rules applied differently to each of us. My mother, Diana, had retired early from her elementary school teaching position due to health concerns. Her anxiety about Jake led to overprotection that bordered on enabling. Where I faced consequences for minor infractions, Jake received understanding and second chances for serious issues. Your brother is just finding himself, she would say, dismissing concerns about his behavior well into his 20s. Despite the obvious favoritism, I pushed forward. I maintained excellent grades throughout high school while working part-time at the local hardware store. By graduation, I had saved enough to cover my first year of community college. I transferred to a state university after 2 years, continuing to work while maintaining a full course load. My IT degree opened doors, and by 32, I had established myself as a network security specialist with a respectable salary. I purchased a modest 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood, built an emergency fund, and started investing for retirement. When my father needed dental surgery, not covered by insurance, I quietly paid the $5,000 bill without being asked. All the while, Jake drifted. He enrolled in 3 different colleges over 6 years, never completing more than a semester at each. Our parents funded each fresh start, depleting their savings in the process. While I spent weekends studying or working, Jake hosted parties that occasionally ended with property damage or police visits. The summer after my sophomore year, I saved up to buy my first car, a used Honda Civic. 3 weeks after I got it, Jake borrowed it without permission and crashed into a mailbox while texting. Instead of making him contribute to repairs, my parents suggested I should have been more willing to share. As adults, the pattern continued. Jake would show up at my place unannounced when he needed money, or a place to crash after fights with roommates or girlfriends. I loaned him cash for rent, job interview clothes, and once for court fees after a public intoxication charge. The loans were never repaid, but I wrote them off as the cost of maintaining family peace. Just this once, Jake would promise with his signature smile that charmed everyone from our parents to his endless string of girlfriends. That smile worked less and less on me as years passed and promises remained unfulfilled. Last Christmas, Jake announced he had landed a position at a startup with serious potential. My parents beamed with pride, and for once I allowed myself to hope that at 28, my brother might finally be turning a corner. The job lasted 6 weeks before he quit, claiming the environment was toxic and the commute unreasonable. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries as best I could. I limited financial help, refused to co-sign for apartments after the first disaster, and tried to offer practical advice instead of bailouts. This earned me a reputation as the cold brother, the one who lacked compassion. "Your brother needs you," my mother would say during weekly calls, her voice heavy with disappointment when I refused another request. Family supports family. What they never seemed to understand was that supporting someone means helping them grow, not enabling behavior that keeps them dependent. Jake had potential intelligence and charm, but had never faced consequences significant enough to prompt change. Looking back, I should have seen what was coming. The warning signs were there, in the increasing frequency of his visits, his unusual interest in my home office setup, and the questions about my financial planning. But blood and history blinded me to what anyone else might have recognized as the groundwork for betrayal. 2 months ago, Jake dropped by unexpectedly on a Sunday afternoon. I was in the backyard doing some gardening when he arrived, so he let himself in with the spare key I had given him for emergencies. We grilled steaks and talked about a new sci-fi series we both followed. For once, it felt like the brotherly relationship I had always wanted. He even helped clean up afterward, something so rare I mentioned it to Sam, my best friend, the next day. "Maybe he is finally growing up," I said, not realizing that his helpfulness had provided the perfect opportunity to access my home office, where my financial documents were stored in what I had naively believed was a secure filing cabinet. That visit was the last normal interaction we would have for months. The calm before a storm that would force me to redefine every relationship in my life, including the one with myself. The call from First National Bank came at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of a video conference with clients when my phone vibrated persistently against my desk. After the third call in 5 minutes, I excused myself and answered. "Mr. Chambers, this is Valerie from the Fraud Prevention Department at First National Bank. We have detected unusual activity regarding a recent auto loan application using your credit information. Could you verify if you applied for a loan in the amount of $42,000 yesterday afternoon?" My stomach tightened. "No, I did not apply for any loan recently." Valerie detailed the application, which included my social security number, address, and employment information. The loan had been conditionally approved, but flagged for verification due to the amount and the dealership location 30 miles from my home address. "We will deny this application immediately and place a fraud alert on your credit file," Valerie assured me. "I recommend filing a police report and contacting the other credit bureaus." I thanked her, ended the call, and sat motionless, trying to process what had happened. Identity theft was something that happened to careless people who shared too much information online or fell for phishing scams, not to someone who worked in network security. A quick check of my credit monitoring app showed the inquiry from the bank, and more disturbingly, 3 other inquiries from different lenders over the past week. Someone had been shopping my credit around looking for approval. I called the dealership Valerie had mentioned, explaining the situation to their finance manager. After some reluctance, he confirmed that a man had been in yesterday to purchase a BMW 3 Series, providing my information for financing. The deal was pending final approval. "Can you describe this person?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "About 6 feet, dark hair, athletic build. Late 20s, I would guess. Said he was a software developer." The description matched Jake perfectly down to the profession he often claimed to be pursuing when meeting new people. "Did he leave any contact information, a phone number? Let me check." There was a pause, the sound of typing. "Yes, but I cannot share that over the phone due to privacy policies. The phone number probably ends in 4892, right?" I suggested, reciting the last 4 digits of Jake's number. The silence on the other end confirmed my suspicion. I drove to Jake's apartment, immediately calling him repeatedly on the way. Each call went to voicemail. His roommate Travis answered the door, looking uncomfortable. "He is not here, man. Has not been around much lately." "Do you know where he is?" Travis shrugged, said something about checking out new rides. Been talking about a BMW all week, showing pictures and stuff. Said his big brother was helping him out. The rage I felt in that moment was physical, a burning sensation that started in my chest and spread outward. I thanked Travis and left, driving directly to my parents' house. If anyone knew where Jake was, it would be them. Both my parents' cars were in the driveway. I found them in the kitchen, my mother preparing lunch, while my father read the newspaper at the table. They looked up with surprise when I entered without knocking. "Edgar." "What a nice surprise," my mother began, but stopped when she saw my expression. "Did you know?" I demanded. "Did you know Jake stole my identity to buy a car?" My parents exchanged a look that told me everything. They knew. "Sit down, son," my father said in his conflict resolution voice, honed by decades of corporate management. This is not as bad as you are making it sound. I remained standing. Not as bad. He committed fraud. He stole my personal information and applied for loans in my name. That is identity theft and credit fraud. It is a felony. My mother approached, placing her hand on my arm. Your brother has found a good job, Edgar. He needs reliable transportation, and his credit was not. Well, you know how he has struggled. He is trying to get his life together. I stared at her disbelief, rendering me momentarily speechless. So you think it is okay for him to steal from me, to potentially ruin my credit score that I have spent years building, to commit an actual crime? No one is saying it was the right approach, my father interjected. Jake should have discussed this with you first, but his intentions were good. He plans to make all the payments. This job is a fresh start. What job? I asked, my voice rising. The last I heard, he quit the startup months ago. He has been hired at Meridian Tech, my mother said brightly, starting next Monday as a junior developer. $65,000 a year plus benefits. I laughed, the sound hollow and bitter. And you believe that? After every other job that lasted weeks at best, this time is different, my father insisted. He showed us the offer letter. This is a legitimate company, not some fly-by-night operation. I pulled out my phone and searched for Meridian Tech, finding their careers page in seconds. There are no junior developer positions listed. In fact, they had a hiring freeze announced last quarter due to budget constraints. My mother's face fell, but my father remained unmoved. Perhaps it was an internal posting not listed publicly. Or perhaps he fabricated an offer letter just like he fabricated his right to use my credit history, I countered. Where is he now? We are not sure, my mother admitted. He mentioned something about finalizing paperwork today. At the BMW dealership I finished for her. Using my stolen information, my father stood, his expression hardening. I think you need to calm down and look at the bigger picture here, Edgar. Your brother is finally showing responsibility. He has a plan to repay this loan. You have always been financially secure while Jake has struggled. Would it really harm you to help him this once I could not believe what I was hearing? This once I have helped him dozens of times. I paid his rent when he was facing eviction. I covered the damage deposit on 3 different apartments. I loaned him money for that coding boot camp he dropped out of after 2 weeks. None of which he ever repaid. Those were different circumstances, my mother argued weakly. No, they were exactly the same. Jake takes and everyone expects me to give. But this time he has gone too far. He committed a crime against me, and you are defending him. My father's face reddened. No one is defending criminal behavior. But involving the police would destroy his future. Surely you do not want that for your brother. And there it was, the expectation that had defined our family dynamic my entire life. My needs, my boundaries, my very legal rights were secondary to protecting Jake from consequences. What about my future? I asked quietly. What about the impact on my credit? My financial stability? What happens when he inevitably stops making payments on this car he cannot afford? My parents exchanged another look, and my mother spoke hesitantly. We thought, perhaps you could add him as an authorized user on your credit card instead. Then the loan could be transferred properly, and everything would be legal. The audacity of this request left me breathless. They were not just excusing his behavior, they were suggesting I legitimize it after the fact. No, I said firmly. Not only will I not do that, I am going to report this to the police. This has to stop. My mother began to cry, while my father's expression turned to stone. If you do that, you will tear this family apart, he warned. Is that really what you want? I looked at them both, these people who had raised me to believe in responsibility and honesty, now asking me to compromise both for the sake of the son who had never been held to the same standards. I am not the one tearing this family apart, I replied, turning to leave. But I am done being the only one trying to hold it together at my own expense. As I drove away, my phone lit up with texts from both parents, alternating between pleas and subtle guilt trips. None expressed concern for my situation or acknowledged the fundamental violation Jake had committed. When I got home, I found my filing cabinet unlocked, several documents disturbed. My computer showed signs of unauthorized access. Looking at security camera footage from the day of Jake's visit, I watched as he slipped into my office while I was outside grilling our dinner, spending nearly 15 minutes going through my personal files. The betrayal felt physical, like a blow to the chest. I sat on my couch in the dark, wondering how I could have been so blind for so long. For the first time, I saw with perfect clarity that the dynamic would never change unless I changed it. The question was, did I have the courage to stand against not just my brother, but my entire family? I called Sam, the only person who had consistently seen through Jake's charm to the manipulation beneath. "My brother stole my identity to buy a BMW," I said when he answered, "and my parents think I should let him keep it." There was a long pause before Sam responded. "What are you going to do about it?" The question was simple but profound. For once, I had no interest in taking the path of least resistance in maintaining a fragile peace at my own expense. "Whatever it takes to ensure this never happens again," I replied, and for the first time that terrible day, I felt something close to certainty. The morning after discovering Jake's betrayal, I met with Jessica Harmon, a lawyer specializing in identity theft and financial fraud. Her office was small but meticulous, much like the woman herself. "Based on what you have told me, you have a clear case of identity theft," she confirmed after reviewing my documents. "The fact that the perpetrator is your brother does not diminish the crime. What are my options?" I asked. "You need to file a police report immediately," Jessica explained. "That establishes the official record of fraud, which protects you from financial liability. You should also file reports with the Federal Trade Commission and place fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus." She outlined additional steps: gathering evidence, freezing my credit, changing all passwords, and monitoring accounts for unusual activity. When I mentioned my parents' reaction, she was unsurprised. Family dynamics often complicate these cases. Many victims hesitate to press charges against relatives which perpetrators count on. They expect forgiveness or minimal consequences because of blood ties. My parents want me to add him as an authorized user on my accounts to legitimize the loan. After the fact, I admitted. Jessica's expression hardened. "That would be a serious mistake. It would transfer liability to you and potentially implicate you in fraud if you knowingly misrepresented the situation to lenders." Armed with this information, I filed a police report that afternoon. The officer taking my statement was professional but skeptical until I presented the evidence, the unauthorized credit inquiries, the security footage of Jake accessing my office and text messages where he had previously asked to borrow money for a car down payment which I had declined. "We will investigate and forward this to the district attorney if warranted," the officer assured me. Identity theft between family members is unfortunately common but still prosecutable. I spent the next 3 days securing my financial life, changing every password, ordering new credit cards, and implementing 2-factor authentication on all accounts. Each night, my phone filled with increasingly desperate messages from my parents and other relatives who had been enlisted to pressure me. "Your cousin Ryan thinks you are overreacting," my mother texted. "He says brothers borrow things all the time." I did not bother responding. Identity theft was not borrowing, and I was done explaining that basic fact. On Friday afternoon, I received a call from Detective Wilson, who had been assigned to my case. "We have enough evidence to proceed with charges," he informed me. "Officers will be arresting Jacob Chambers today on felony counts of identity theft and fraud." Despite my resolve, my heart raced at this news. Where will they arrest him? We received information that he would be at Luxury Motors BMW today, around 4 o'clock, attempting to complete the purchase using your information. After ending the call, I sat in my home office staring at the space Jake had violated. Part of me wanted to warn him, to give him one last chance to make this right. But I knew from experience that warnings only gave Jake time to craft better excuses, not change his behavior. At 5:42 p.m., my father called, his voice shaking with rage. "The police just took your brother away in handcuffs." In public, they humiliated him in front of everyone at that dealership. "He was attempting to commit fraud, Dad. Again. He is your brother. That did not stop him from stealing from me." There was a long pause before my father spoke again, his voice cold. "If you continue with this, if you refuse to drop these charges, you are no longer welcome in this family. Your mother and I cannot support this vendetta against your own blood. The ultimatum hit hard, despite being half expected. "I am sorry you feel that way," I managed to say, "but Jake needs to face consequences for once in his life." "Then so do you," my father replied before hanging up. The following weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, family pressure, and emotional turmoil. Jake was released on bail paid by my parents, who mortgaged their house to cover both the bail and his legal fees. Meanwhile, I was cast as the villain in family narratives, the cold-hearted brother who chose legal retribution over compassion. Cousins I had helped move, uncles whose computers I had fixed for free, aunts whose medical bills I had quietly contributed to, all united in condemnation of my cruelty. Only Sam and a handful of friends stood by me, understanding what others refused to see. This was not about revenge, but self-preservation. The strain affected every aspect of my life. I lost weight, struggled to focus at work, and developed insomnia that left me exhausted during the day. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Rivera, who helped me navigate the guilt and doubt that threatened to overwhelm my resolve. "Family systems often resist change," she explained, during one particularly difficult session. "By standing up for yourself, you are disrupting patterns that have existed for decades. The pressure you are experiencing is the system trying to force you back into your assigned role. Sometimes I wonder if it would have been easier to just pay for the car," I admitted. "Easier in the short term, perhaps. But what would happen the next time Jake needed something? And the time after that?" She was right, and I knew it. The path of least resistance would only lead back to the same place, with Jake taking and me giving until there was nothing left. The preliminary hearing revealed something none of us had known. Jake had attempted similar scams with 2 former roommates and an ex-girlfriend, though none had pressed charges. The district attorney used this pattern of behavior to argue for the case to proceed to trial, despite my family's attempts to have the charges dropped. As we left the courthouse that day, I came face to face with Jake for the first time since his arrest. Gone was the charming smile, replaced by a cold glare of hatred. "Happy now?" he asked as we passed in the hallway. "You have ruined my life over a car." I stopped, turning to face him directly. "You ruined your own life, Jake. And mine was collateral damage as usual. I would have made the payments." He insisted the same lie he had told countless times before. With what money? The imaginary job at Meridian Tech. His expression faltered briefly. "You checked on that?" "Of course I did. There was never a job offer." Jake's attorney, an expensive criminal defense lawyer hired by my parents, quickly intervened, pulling him away before he could respond. But I had seen something in that moment of confrontation, a flash of the truth beneath the manipulation. Jake had never expected consequences. Not this time, not any time. As the case progressed, my parents grew increasingly desperate. My mother left tearful voicemails daily, while my father alternated between angry demands and awkward attempts at reconciliation that never acknowledged the fundamental issue. The rest of the family chose sides, with only my grandmother, Ruth, calling to offer quiet support. "I love both my grandsons," she told me during a rare private conversation, "but what Jake did was wrong, and he needs to face that. Your parents failed him by never setting limits." Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit, a reminder that standing firm did not make me a villain, no matter how others tried to paint me. The day of the trial arrived with a surprising development. Jake, against his attorney's advice, agreed to a plea deal, guilty on all charges, in exchange for a reduced sentence. 2 years with possible parole, after 8 months, restitution for all damages, and mandatory financial counseling. In the courtroom, before the judge accepted the plea, I was permitted to make a victim impact statement. Standing at the podium, facing not just Jake but my parents and the scattered family members who had come to support him, I found the words I had been struggling to form for months. "Your Honor, the financial damage caused by my brother's actions can be calculated in dollars and credit score points. But the true cost has been in trust destroyed and relationships damaged beyond repair. For years I believed that supporting my brother meant protecting him from consequences, because that was what I was taught family should do. Today I understand that real support means holding someone accountable so they have the opportunity to become better." I turned slightly, making brief eye contact with Jake. I do not wish for my brother to suffer. I wish for him to grow to develop the integrity and responsibility he has been shielded from his entire life. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we need most. As I returned to my seat, I caught my mother wiping tears and my father staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched tight. Neither would meet my eyes. The judge accepted the plea deal with one addition: a no-contact order between Jake and myself for the duration of his sentence and probation. Family ties do not excuse criminal behavior, she stated firmly. In fact, they often make such violations more damaging to the victim. This court takes that seriously. As Jake was led away, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction in his punishment, only a profound sadness for what our family had become and a tentative hope that perhaps finally change might be possible. The months following Jake's sentencing were the quietest of my life. The no-contact order created a buffer zone that extended beyond just my brother to include my parents, who chose to stand with him rather than attempt to bridge the divide with me. Family gatherings happened without my knowledge. Holidays passed with only text message acknowledgments, and the silence between visits grew comfortable, then normal. In the absence of constant family drama, I focused on rebuilding. My credit score, damaged by the multiple inquiries and the fraudulent applications, slowly recovered. I implemented advanced security measures on all accounts and changed banks entirely, leaving no paths for potential future intrusions. Work became a sanctuary, and I threw myself into projects with renewed focus. My boss noticed the change, offering me lead position on a major security overhaul for a Fortune 500 client. The success of that project led to a promotion and substantial raise, financial validation that arrived just as I was beginning to believe things might work out after all. On a personal level, the changes were more profound. Sessions with Dr. Rivera helped me recognize patterns of codependency and people-pleasing that had defined not just family relationships, but friendships and romantic connections as well. I learned to set boundaries, to value my own needs alongside those of others, and to recognize the difference between genuine care and manipulation. "You have done the hardest part already," Dr. Rivera noted during our 6th month of therapy. "You stood firm in your truth despite enormous pressure to abandon it. That strength will serve you well moving forward." I developed new friendships through a hiking group. Sam had introduced me to people who knew me only as I was now, not as the eternally responsible brother carrying family burdens. For the first time in memory, I dated without unconsciously seeking women who needed rescuing, focusing instead on shared interests and mutual support. Then, one rainy Tuesday 7 months after the trial, my mother appeared on my doorstep. She looked older, more fragile than I remembered, her hair showing more gray than brown now. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice uncertain in a way I had never heard before. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in my living room, the silence stretching uncomfortably between us, until she finally spoke. "Jake is being released next month. Good behavior and participation in programs shortened his sentence." I nodded, unsurprised. The parole board had contacted me weeks earlier about the potential early release, asking if I had any concerns. I had expressed none, provided the no-contact order remained in effect. "He has changed, Edgar. The counseling, the classes, even just the structure and consequences, they made a difference." "I am glad to hear that," I said honestly. She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring nervously. "Your father and I have done a lot of thinking during this time, and talking with each other and with a family therapist," the court recommended. She paused, taking a deep breath. "We were wrong about so many things for so many years." The admission hung in the air between us, both unexpected and long overdue. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "We favored Jake, made excuses for him, never held him accountable. We thought we were protecting him, but really we were setting him up to fail. And we put unfair expectations on you, treated you as if your stability and success meant you did not need support or recognition." Tears formed in her eyes, and she made no move to wipe them away. "I am so sorry, Edgar, for not supporting you when Jake violated your trust, for treating you as if your pain mattered less than his comfort, for failing both of you in different ways." The apology I had never expected to hear left me momentarily speechless. Part of me wanted to brush it aside to offer immediate forgiveness and return to the familiar dynamic of smoothing things over, but Dr. Rivera's voice echoed in my mind. Authentic reconciliation requires honest acknowledgement, not just convenient absolution. It hurt, I said finally, my voice steady. Not just what Jake did, but that you and Dad immediately took his side, that you expected me to sacrifice my financial security and absorb the consequences of his actions again. She nodded, accepting the truth of my words. We had no right to ask that of you. And Jake knows now that what he did was inexcusable. The programs he attended helped him recognize his patterns of entitlement and manipulation. And Dad, how does he feel about all this? My mother smiled sadly. He struggles more with admitting mistakes. His own father never did, you know. But he is trying. He was the one who suggested I come see you today, though he thought you might slam the door in my face. I considered it, I admitted. I would have deserved that she acknowledged, but I am grateful you did not. We talked for over 2 hours, covering ground that should have been traversed decades earlier. She shared insights from their therapy sessions, revelations about how their own upbringings had shaped their parenting. I described my experience as the responsible child always expected to pick up the slack, to understand, to forgive without requiring change. By the time she left, we had not solved everything, but we had created a foundation for something new. She hugged me at the door, holding on a beat longer than usual. Your father would like to see you when you are ready, she said. No pressure. Just an open invitation. I will think about it, I promised and meant it. 2 weeks later, I met my father at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our homes. The conversation was more stilted than the one with my mother, his pride still a barrier to full vulnerability. But beneath the awkwardness, I sensed genuine regret and a desire to rebuild. I was wrong, he said abruptly, after several minutes of small talk. About Jake, about what we asked of you, about a lot of things. Coming from my father, these simple words represented a monumental shift. I extended an olive branch in return. I never wanted Jake to go to jail. I just needed the taking to stop. He nodded his eyes, focusing on his coffee cup. I know that now. We enabled behavior that hurt him as much as it hurt you. More probably. When Jake was released, he moved into a halfway house, as required by his parole. The no-contact order remained in effect, but my mother kept me updated on his progress. He had found work as a barista humble, compared to his previous grand claims, but steady. He attended financial responsibility classes and group therapy sessions. 6 months after his release, when the no-contact order expired, Jake sent me a letter. Not a text or email, but a handwritten letter that arrived at my office rather than my home, respecting that he no longer had the right to know my personal address. I cannot undo what I did, he wrote in a neater hand than I remembered him possessing. I violated your trust in the worst way after years of taking advantage of your generosity. I am not writing to ask forgiveness because some things should not be easily forgiven. I am writing to tell you that I understand now what I did, not just legally, but as your brother. I broke something precious, and I do not expect you to rebuild it. But I am working every day to become someone who would deserve your trust, even if I never earn it back. Enclosed was a check for $372, with a note explaining it was the first of many payments toward making financial amends. The letter sat on my desk for days, as I considered how or whether to respond. Finally, I sent a brief email, acknowledging receipt and expressing appreciation for his insight and effort. It was not forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a door left slightly ajar. Over the next year, our family began a slow, sometimes painful reconstruction. My parents and I established new patterns of interaction based on mutual respect rather than assigned roles. Jake and I maintained cautious distance, communicating primarily through occasional emails and family gatherings, where we engaged politely but not intimately. Each month without fail, Jake sent a payment toward what he now called his responsibility debt. The amounts increased gradually as he secured better employment, eventually landing an entry-level position at an actual tech company with verification I could check myself. The path to healing was neither straight nor simple. There were setbacks moments when old patterns threatened to resurface, times when the weight of history nearly crushed fragile new connections. But there was also growth that would have been impossible without the painful fracture and deliberate reconstruction of our family system. 2 years after that fateful Tuesday morning, when my phone buzzed with a bank alert, I invited Jake to meet for coffee. We sat across from each other, two men now, rather than the roles we had played for so long, brother and brother, equal in dignity, if not yet in trust. "I never thought we would be here again," Jake admitted, stirring his drink nervously. "Neither did I agreed. "But maybe that is not a bad thing. The relationship we had before was broken long before you took my identity." He nodded slowly. "I think I always resented how easily everything seemed to come to you. It took losing everything to realize you worked for every bit of it while I was waiting for success to fall into my lap. And I resented how easily forgiveness and support came to you while I had to earn every scrap of approval." We talked openly for the first time in our adult lives, not as the roles we had been assigned, the responsible one and the troubled one, but simply as two people with a shared history working toward a possible shared future. The journey to rebuild trust continues to this day. Jake has maintained steady employment and financial responsibility. My parents have grown in their understanding of healthy family dynamics, and I have learned that standing firm in your boundaries does not mean standing alone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not forgiving someone who wronged you, but standing up for yourself when no one else will. And sometimes the deepest healing comes not from erasing the past, but from building something entirely new on its ruins. Have you ever had to stand up to family for your own well-being? How did you find the strength to hold your boundaries? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. Your support means everything as we navigate these complicated human journeys together. Thank you for listening, and remember, protecting your peace is never selfish, it is necessary.